everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, 5 Ways to Help Teachers Progress in Their Use of Technology. This program is sponsored by NetRef, a powerful internet management tool that helps educators monitor classroom internet use, keep students on task, and determine the true ROI of EdTech investments. Before we begin the program, I'll review just a few quick housekeeping items. We will be accepting questions throughout the webinar, and we'll hold a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please go ahead and send in your questions as they come up for you using the questions feature in your control panel. Just type your questions into the top box, push send, and I'll get your question and I'll put it in the queue to be answered during the Q&A. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please use that same questions feature to get my attention, and I'll do my best to resolve the problem for you. We will be sharing a recording of the webinar along with the presentation slides with you. Just keep an eye on your email inbox tomorrow for details on how to access those materials. If for some reason your email or the email we send goes into your spam folder or junk mail, you can also check out the NetRef website, which is net-ref.com, and that'll be displayed at the end of the presentation as well. But we will be posting the recording and the slides to the website, so you can get those either via email or the website. Now let's get started. I'm pleased to welcome today's speaker, Vicki Davis. Vicki is a full-time teacher and instructional technology director at a small school in Albany, Georgia. But many of you are much more familiar with her work and her very popular Cool Cat Teacher blog and 10-Minute Teacher podcast, where she inspires teachers and provides practical instructional and classroom management tips. Vicki is also well known for her creation of more than 20 global collaborative projects, including the Flat Classroom Project that won ISTE's Online Learning Award, and the Mad About Mattering project in 2016 and 17. She is the author of 3 books, including the groundbreaking Flattening Classrooms, Engaging Minds, as well as many articles for publications like Edutopia, The Washington Post, and The Atlantic. Vicki is an internationally known speaker on the innovative use of educational technology in the classroom and is both a Discovery Star educator and a Google certified innovator. She's the proud mother of 3 children, 4 dogs, and 3 cats, and is honored to have the privilege of teaching amazing students and working with amazing educators across the country, really, through her Cool Cat Teacher blog. We are really honored to have Vicki with us today, and we're looking forward to learning about how we can all continue to evolve in our use of EdTech. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the program over to her now.
Okay, thanks, Emily. I appreciate being here today. And again, I encourage you to pose your questions. I'm going to wait to go on webcam until that time, just so that we can save all of our bandwidth. So let's talk about what we're going to learn today. First, we're going to learn some simple strategies that work to help teachers of all levels improve. Now, I just want to encourage you, every single school is different. So you need to pick what works for you. Second is some vision casting phrases that help teachers adopt a growth mindset in their own personal PD. Because truthfully, we can't really make anyone learn. It is a decision. It's a heart condition. Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to try something new? And it's a real subtle way to encourage awesome teachers everywhere to be able to innovate. Third is what we can do as IT directors and leaders each week to help teachers progress. Now, if you're a teacher and you're on the call, you can also do these strategies to help be part of change and to be known as an opinion leader. Number 4 is we're going to talk about celebrating progress in ways that teachers love and enjoy. And no, it doesn't have to be super, super fancy. And then number 5 is how can we encourage improvement while respecting the teacher's life situation? And this is really important. This word, respect, you're going to hear me say it a lot because I think that it's so important to respect the teacher. I'm a teacher and wear the hat of IT director, and teachers are awesome. And you have to start from a place of realizing that we're all in a different place and teachers are amazing people. And I believe that most teachers really want to do an incredible job. They just have a difficult job. So how can we help people innovate? So first, we're going to talk about some simple strategies for improvement. And it was kind of funny because one of the teachers I teach with, Cassandra, when I posted last night on Facebook that I was going to be doing this webinar, she immediately said, innovate like a turtle. And that is say that all the time. Now, one thing we need to remember is, of course, we know the old Aesop's fable that, the turtle moving forward and beating the hare and that sort of thing. But it's about forward progress. But I want you to also remember that every turtle swims in a different environment. So sometimes teachers may not be turtling because the water is too cold. Or if the water's frozen, well, that'll kill turtles, or they'll get out or they'll go hibernate, waiting for it to warm up. So if your environment is frigid and challenging, you want to try to warm things up with your language and your behavior. And then, if it's too hot and it's boiling, well, nobody's going to get in that water either. It was amazing. I was listening to a Harvard Business Review podcast as I was coming home from school to do this webinar for you guys. And they were talking about Nokia, Nokia, the mobile phone maker. And they said, they were just innovating so much. And 3 years before the iPhone came out, some revolutionary people proposed that this color touch screen mobile phone that had an app store, and the executive said it would never work. And 3 years later, the iPhone came out and did it. Well, how come you had this company that was just all innovating, and they were innovating pretty quickly, and then all of a sudden they froze to a stop? And the speaker on Harvard Business Review said that the environment changed and it became an environment where people didn't innovate. So remember, it's about environment, but it's also about us teachers. So Benjamin Franklin said, without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. So we have to have continual growth and progress and slow, steady improvement. I mean, that's the only improvement that works. I have 3 kids, and when they wake up in the morning, I don't look at them and go, "Oh, you grew." But if I look, if at my son's picture from 3 months ago, I can tell that he grew. The same with us teachers. We don't grow overnight. So I've never had an 8-hour PD where I sat there and listened to a lecture and all of a sudden I just grew tremendously the next day. That's not what happens. It's innovating like a turtle. That is what works. It's slow, steady improvement. Now, for those of you who think, oh, this is oversimplified, there is a Japanese term for this. It's Kaizen. Slow, steady improvement. And J. Edwards Deming went to Japan and helped them improve after World War II. And this was his method of improvement, was that it's slow and that it's steady. And that's the only thing that really works. So there's a 3-2-1 way to innovate like a turtle that I've kind of evolved to in the last few the last few years. So I sat down at a GAETC conference and Georgia Association of Educators Technology Conference. And I had been to the conference a couple of years before, and I sat by a guy named David Warlick, who is an amazing innovator. And I said to him, what's a blicky? And how can I use it in my classroom? So I didn't even say the word blog right or wiki right. I mixed the word blog and wiki together. So he said, and he was so respectful and he was so kind. So I want to just make that point that I would be speaking to you today if David hadn't been so kind and so very respectful. So I get back from this conference and I wanted to do all these things. And I was like, why have I never heard of blogs and wikis and podcasts? And I pulled open a file cabinet drawer and I looked at my thing from the year before. And the year before, I had 50 things on the list and I got nothing done. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to pick 3 things. What are the next 3 things I want to learn? The next 3 things I'm going to try. And that's what I'm going to do. So I just pick 3 and I call them my big 3. I always have my big 3 things that I'm learning. Right now, it is some software. I'm working with Adobe Premiere. This year, augmented reality programming was part of my big 3, and I learned how to do that. And then I kind of moved on. So just keep a list either in your mind or in your planner of what are the next 3 things I'm going to try. So I would encourage you to share in the chat or share in your questions. If you just want to say, hey, these are my big 3, I'd love to shout out some of you and what your big 3 are. What are the 3 next things you want to try? Now, the reason I like to have 3 is because the next part of this strategy is that we have to do something called sandboxing, or we have to play before we produce. So we're getting ready to turtle. And I actually have turtle time on my calendar. And I know that sounds silly, but it's just not intimidating for me. So I want to play with these different tools to figure out what I'm going to use in my classroom. So if I have 3 things on my list, I kind of have some choices, and I can pick what it is that I need to pick for my classroom at that time. So when I innovate like a turtle, I pick 15 minutes 2 times a week. That's it. 15 minutes 2 times a week is my turtle time. And I go into a new piece of software and I just play. Now, if I'm going to play with something that I've already created and it's important, I always do file save as and make a copy so that I don't mess it up. Because when you play with software, I'm looking at all the things on the menu. I'm trying out all the buttons. I'm searching on Google to find out how have other teachers used this particular tool. And I am just kind of tinkering and playing with it. And then I keep a notebook handy and I write about what are the other things I want to explore. Now, this is important because I'm usually taking my snack attack time. That's also break or whatever you want to call it in the morning. And those run about 15 minutes. So if I end at a place and I want to pick up there the next time, I'll just write myself a note, hey, pick up with adding this special effect in After Effects or something, and I keep a notebook handy. So my second thing is that I'm turtling at least 2 times a week and trying something new for about 15 minutes, and I do set my timer. I cannot look up and find out that I've spent 2 hours playing with a new tool just because I have so much work that I'm doing at school. We all have a lot of work, don't we? And then the one is we want to share at least one thing a month with someone. Now, we have a little Google Classroom for our teachers, and I call it SCA Teacher Fun. And we get in there and we're always sharing, oh, look what I found, or look what I did, or oh, this was so cool. And we have to remember that if you're an instructional technology coach or instructional technology director or a principal, teachers tend to learn from people that they like and respect. So on my podcast not too long ago, the 10-minute teacher, I had a lady named Joy Kier on the show, Kirr. She's from Canada, and she's just all over Twitter, and she does Genius Hour, and she does all these amazing things. Joy is just an incredible, well, she's a joy to know and work with. But why did she get on Twitter? She heard people talk about it. She heard everybody say, all about this stuff. But she finally got on because another teacher that she knew that she met at this conference said that Joy could keep up with her if she got on Twitter. So teachers, if we're going to create that warm environment for innovation, it's up to all of us. So educators who care, share. So try to share one thing a month with somebody. I do think it's a great idea for schools to have a little private professional development community where you can share what you're doing. And we do that in Google Classroom at my school. But pick a place where you can share that's not intimidating. I like Google Classroom because teachers can just shoot the video and throw it up there on their phone. Just a real casual way of saying, hey, look what I did. So here's how you innovate like a turtle. You have 3 things on your try list. You try to sandbox something new 2 times a week just for 15 minutes. And it can be the same thing. Like you can do the same thing on Tuesday that you do on Thursday. And then at least once a month, share something new with colleagues. Now, if anybody follows my blog or my podcast, I share much more than one thing a month. And this is kind of a hard thing because a lot of us feel like, well, I don't have anything to share. But you all inspire someone. You all inspire people. And when you share, it's just kind of like we're all in it together. And it creates that warm environment for innovation in your school when all the teachers are kind of in it together. You're doing it not because it's a mandate, but you're just doing this because you have to be different to reach this generation of students. This generation is so easily bored that we're always having to pull new things from our bag of tricks. And I'm not saying you have to entertain them, but we do have to have different strategies and different ideas. And so sandboxing keeps my classroom fresh. And truthfully, innovating like a turtle is really the secret behind my own blog and success and the stuff that I've done. I don't innovate like a rabbit. I do not have time. There have been years where I had 7 classes and prom and so many things. I just couldn't do it all. So turtling, it works. And I'll tell you something really exciting that happened. So we had a fantastic accreditation visit last week, and I was talking to some of the people who were visiting our school, and um, I said, "Oh, I always like to say innovate like a turtle." And they said, "Oh, your teachers are saying turtling like a verb. They're saying, I'm turtling this or I'm turtling that." And what a great attitude. And I was just like, yes, because it's just not intimidating. And you can choose to innovate in a different way. But this is the terminology that I like to use. Now we're getting into what I call vision casting. So this is part of using your terminology or using the right words. Now, I love this quote from Helen Keller: the only thing worse than being blind is having sight and no vision. And I'm so excited because the school where I am right now has such a vision for what we want the school to be. And vision is something that is shared, and you have to feel like you're part of it when there's a vision. And so, it's like even like casting for fish. You want a bait to catch the right fish, and you want to cast in a way that's going to help other people catch the vision. So for me, this is what works. What works for me is I work hard to try to be part of leadership. And remember, all of us are leaders, and it's an environment of leadership. Because when you have amazing success, like I've seen our teachers do at my school this year, I don't really feel like I can take credit for them at all, because they've made a decision to be amazing, and they are amazing. And cool things happen all the time in technology because we're all turtling and we're all learning new stuff. And my friend Sabrina down the hall for me, she got on quizzes before I did. And here's the interesting thing: quizzes, Quizziz. So I had heard 2 different people on my podcast talk about how amazing this app was. And this shows you how us teachers work. And I kept thinking, I need to try quizzes. I need to try quizzes. But when Sabrina came running in my room, because we had done this really cool PD thing I'll talk about in a little bit, and she said, "Oh, Vicki, quizzes is so awesome. You've got to try it." Guess what? In 5 minutes, I was in quizzes. So this is just how we learn. So this is also what I do with casting a vision for my students: is who do we want to be? And our to be list helps us make our to do list. So I always say that we're world class and God honoring. That's who we are. That's my expectation. That's what we all expect to be. Now, I will say that, you have to understand what is your expectation for your school, for your students, for your classroom, and understand what that expectation is. But that's part of your vision casting. And I repeat that all the time. So if a student does something that I think is out of character for that student, or it's not really what is making me very proud at that moment, I'll ask them. I'll say, what do we say? What are our 4 words? And they'll say, oh, world class and God honoring. And I'm in a Christian school, so I can say that. And they'll I'll say, well, is what you just did those? Does that fit that vision? And they'll, well, no, that wasn't very world class, was it? And I'm like, no, it's not. So let's reboot and let's be world class. Let's don't do that anymore. And reinforce that expectation all the time. Other part of the to be is that we're all turtling. We're all moving forward a little bit every day. Change is not turbo powered. I know sometimes we need it to be, but the truth is kids don't grow overnight, and we don't either. We learn a little bit every day. We share what we learn with each other. That is our DNA. The teachers are always saying, hey, I'm doing this, or hey, I'm doing that. And it's just so much fun to go in the hall and hear one teacher talk about, oh, I'm using a Jeopardy game to review for my history test. And another one's like, cool, I want to do that too. And then I'll come along and I go, hey, I don't know anything about that. Can I learn it too? So we help each other when we learn something new that will benefit our students. And so we want to have that DNA of sharing, that warm environment that turtles can thrive. Also, we want to be together. We don't want people to feel alone and isolated. And I think this is one very difficult thing that we teachers have. It's so easy to feel alone and by ourselves. And this is why so many teachers are drawn to social media and Twitter and that sort of thing, is that we try to find our tribe or our people to connect with. But I will say this, you teach all day, every day at your school, and I don't know about y'all, but I don't use social media when I'm at school. So I don't want to be alone in that, and I don't want teachers to feel alone. I want them to feel like we're in it together, because we are. So we talk about things, and today I had a teacher who said, oh, this app works really, really well, but here are the two things that I'm not very happy with. So I'm kind of thinking on that. And then another one said, you know what? I want to do this better. So I ran into one of our principal's offices and I said, hey, in post planning, this is kind of a suggestion. And in pre planning, this is kind of a suggestion. Can we do this? And we're all in it together. So the teacher's suggestions are going straight into pre planning and post planning and professional development. The to be is that we make slow, steady progress. We're just moving forward. And then one thing our principal challenged us to, our headmaster challenged us to try to identify, some words of what we wanted to do or be better this year. And I have to admit that I am not very good at celebrating. I'm such a type A list making person that very often when something good happens, I'm just kind of like, okay, what's next? And I need to learn to stop and celebrate. So that's something that our school, and I think I've done better this year, is hey, let's celebrate when our awesome kindergarten teacher gets a smartphone and she's now shooting video and doing all this cool stuff. Let's celebrate that. And we have, and we can always celebrate more because we need to and to do that. Now, I made a word cloud of some of the words that I really am trying to use in my speech as I'm working with teachers. And world class is one that I use a lot with teachers. Turtling, sandboxing. Sandboxing is when you're playing in something new. I need to use that term a little bit more. Level up a little every day. Create, share, play, laugh, innovate, learn. Search, enjoy, grow, let's have fun, and let's encourage. So these are all, we actually call our little Google Classroom group SCA Teacher Fun, because that's really what it's supposed to be about. We're just supposed to have fun. We've got enough stress in our lives. So think about, and intentionally, if you're an IT director or an administrator, or even if you're a teacher, think about the words you're using. And if you made a word cloud of the vision casting words that you like to use, what would those words be? And do those words make the environment of your classroom or your school, do they raise the temperature, or are they so hot and angry that they bring it up to boiling? Are you mandating so much that it's boiling? Or is it a frigid environment in words that really cool the temperature and lock it in and make people kind of hibernate and not come out, not want to go to break and not want to eat lunch together or anything like that? So think about your words and the impact that they're having on your environment. Now, I'm going to tell you what doesn't work in my experience, but I do want to encourage you that every single place is different. Now, I've been teaching and doing IT directing work for 17 years now. So I've had years where I made massive mistakes, a whole lot, especially my first 5 or 6 years, where I was just really massive mistakes. One of them that I did not put on here is that if you're a geek, using big words and using a really small word that will kill people in terms of their desire to be part of a vision or a team, the word I. You say I too much, or you use big words too much, and that's a mistake that I will say the word I in this case, I have made that mistake before. So please don't make it. Think about, you don't want the world to be like you. My goodness, I don't want the world to be like me. We want people to be unique and different and awesome and move their classroom forward and bring their unique things to the classroom. I'm a judge for the Global Teacher Prize, and a couple years ago we had the dancing teacher, and he danced. And you got Dave Burgess, who teaches like a pirate. Well, I don't teach like a pirate. I would look dumb, and I don't say "r" very well, right, with a Southern accent. So I don't want to be anybody but me. I'm just going to be me and unique. So be you, be unique, and remember that everybody does not have to do the same thing. In fact, I have found that when you get everybody to do the same thing, even though the kids are excited about it at the beginning, eventually even that gets mundane and boring. So we did game-based learning week back after Thanksgiving as part of our Christmas 3 PD experience. And when we did, the teacher said, hey, this worked really well at first, and then I had to try a different game tool. And that's very true. So if you use Kahoot, then you might want to use quizzes, and then you might want to use something else. Switch it up on the kids. Everybody does not have to do the same thing, but encourage them all and say, hey, guys, let's all have game-based learning and understand what effective game-based learning is. And here's a whole bunch of tools and pick what works for you. I have found that mandates don't work very well, with one exception. Reasonable mandates that become part of how a teacher is evaluated. And that word reasonable is kind of a hard word to use. So there are, you know, some administrators who will say, you know what, your use of technology is going to be part of how I evaluate you. But here's the problem is if teachers know you're coming, they're going to have a great use of technology. The question is, are we using it day in and day out? So to me, evaluating a teacher by going in their online classroom is a little bit better than saying, oh, I want to observe you using EdTech, because it's so hard to really evaluate that except looking at it organically in the online classroom. I also think that being out of touch with a teacher's life situation does not work. If a teacher has something really hard going on in their life, really difficult, I think, and I'm going to talk more about this in a minute, that there are times where you say, you know what, I think right now you just need to hold your classroom together, to hold yourself together. And right now might not be a good time for you to do some of this other stuff. So I tend to think it's okay for teachers to opt out of some experiences. But just remember, if a teacher's had 10 years and they're never, ever joining in innovation, they're not innovating like a turtle, because if you don't improve, you're always declining. So that's a kind of a touchy issue, and you have to be sensitive. I don't think that guilt trips work at all. And I try not to do it, but I can put guilt trips on people and just not know it. So connecting with people, you'll hear about that in a minute. I think that professional development should be like the kind of teaching you're hoping to encourage teachers to do. So let them participate, let them be part of it, let them create, do some fun stuff, laugh, make things different. Don't just let them be stuck. We had a professional development back in January that my friend Sabrina was in charge of. And we laughed our heads off. We laughed so much. It was so much fun. We also learned a lot. And I was just really proud to be part of that experience, because we were doing what we were talking about wanting teachers to do. And it was a great, fantastic experience. So here's some things that do work in my experience. So using other teachers as examples. Anytime you see a teacher do an amazing thing, don't you stand up in front and teach how to do that. Let them stand up in front and teach how they did it. When a teacher emails you a question, then you can say, oh yeah, I'm so ready to teach that. And so this is called JIT, or just-in-time learning. So what I'll do is, a teacher said, hey, I want to share video with my parents. And I was like, okay, let's experiment. We finally figured out that Google Photos was just the perfect solution for her. And so now I'm ready to cut some video and share with the teachers, okay, this is how we did it. And so when you respond to their question, it's something they want to do, they're ready to learn it. And a big part of what I do is every morning, at least 2 to 3 days a week, I try to walk the school and stick my head in people's rooms and just talk to them, have that relationship, and then jump in and help when they have something. So I do think listening works very well. What are their problems? Is there a suggestion you can give them to solve their problem? But remember, not every problem wants a solution. Sometimes it just wants an ear. Respect your teachers. I can't say this enough. If you don't respect your teachers, don't be surprised. Teachers give what you give them. So just respecting and enjoying and loving those teachers, for lack of a better word. I do love the teachers I work with. Um, and then I also think it's awesome to fund individual selections of technologies. So quite a few years ago, I was listening to an administrator talk, and he said, I did the greatest thing. I set aside $50 for every single teacher to buy something they wanted with technology, and they could go in together, or they could do different things with that technology. The only requirement was the first professional development day, everybody had to teach everybody else how they used the technology and what it did. And then if it was something they could share, they needed to share it. And I love this because it's giving choice, and it's making these classrooms different. Again, our kids cannot have a factory line. We do not want every classroom to be the same. You may have a teacher who is such a spellbinding lecturer. I know a history teacher, James, and he can just talk and the kids are captivated. But then there's some other people who are great with projects and they just do all these cool things. So helping classrooms be as unique as the students we serve, I think, is really important part of Vision. And again, I want to encourage you to pose your questions in the question box for those of you who are going to have those, because we're going to be getting to that point here in a minute. So remember that your habits are what shape what happens with you. So what are those weekly habits? Now, I've already talked about one, which is innovate like a turtle, 15 minutes, 2 times a week. And that's a fantastic one. But what I'm going to talk about now, in addition to those habits I've already given you, is these are habits for if you want to be a leader, but also these are habits for teachers. So I'll relate how it's a habit for both. So first of all, FaceTime. FaceTime, I'm not talking about on your iPhone. I'm talking about actual FaceTime with people. So there's a management term, and I'm going to use a big word here, but it proves a point. It's called proquindity. Okay, and I'm not sure I can spell it correctly, but it's PROQUINDITY. And what that principle is, I learned it at Georgia Tech when I was in business school, is that if you have two departments and they're not getting along and you need them to work together, move their offices so they're next to each other. Because when they are put together, they will work together better. This is why when people grow, departments grow and grow and grow, and you move them apart, suddenly they're fighting battles and they're having wars. They're not seeing each other as much. I'm reading a fantastic book called Deep Work by a guy named Cal Newport, and he talks about innovation. And he said one of the things they found in some of these innovative places that they've made in colleges is to have big, long hallways with little places you can hibernate. But they like the big, long hallways because it increases the chance to run into each other. And when people run into each other, I mean, think of it like a Reese's cup where the chocolate hits the peanut butter. You have these Reese's cup moments that happen in the hall when people run into each other and they talk about their innovations. I mean, that's how the transistor happened. That's how so many different innovation happens. It's just what I call a Reese's cup moment, for lack of a better word. So we want to have this space time with people. Now, as a teacher, you are going to do this in your classroom, but as an administrator or a leader, you want to talk to people, you want to have conversations, you want to make your rounds, but here's the thing is you want to genuinely care about people. Now, this comes to Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, and a genuine interest in others is how you win friends and influence people. But here's the thing, this is not a Machiavellian I'm going to be deceitful. Genuinely care about people. And I'll tell you that as I've gotten older, I've learned just so much more about this, about truly caring about people. And, a lot of it has to do with my faith. As I grow closer to God, I learn to care about people more, and I'm less selfish, I hope. Use that word I less. But care, people know if you care. You've got to relate before you educate. And people don't want to learn from you if they don't know you care about them. And they're going to distrust everything. And they're not going to like your emails if they don't like you as a person, because they're always going to read the wrong thing into it. And this is such a hard thing. So what I do to have my intentional FaceTime is I intentionally make the rounds in the hall. So for example, I had spent some time this week earlier in the middle school hall, but today I knew that I hadn't been in the kindergarten hallway, in first grade hallway since middle of last week because we had a busy week last week. So I intentionally went down the upper elementary, the first grade hall, and I ended up with a list of 6 things. And you would think, well, why don't people tell you what they need to do? Well, that's because people are people and we don't think about things and we don't want to inconvenience people because we know they're busy. But when I look at somebody and I say, how is your technology? I had 3 people who were like, oh, I've been meaning to tell you. And they told me, and I can be a better servant to them and serve them in technology better because of the FaceTime that I had with them, as well as checking on my friend Peggy's parents and talking to people about their children and things that I truly do care about and want to know. So, intentional FaceTime is a massive thing. And also with your students, and I had, talked to my soccer boys and girls this morning, how did soccer go last night? I heard you got home at midnight and, talk to them about it and genuinely care. And I make my rounds in the classroom, literally just like I make my rounds. And this technique in my classroom and in my school makes a massive difference. Um, Now, we also want to communicate effectively, and this is a tough one because, most people don't like staff meetings. Staff meetings are really, really difficult, and we know that we're only going to have their attention for 18 to 20 minutes because that's just how human beings pay attention now. So, how do you do this? There are a couple ways that I experiment with that I use depending on the time. So a video. I've done newsletters for a while. I like to use S'more and have good graphics, make them easier to read. That's where I'll embed my video tutorials. And some people prefer to read, but some people prefer to listen. So I'll record a quick 2.5 minute video with all the announcements, and I will edit it down so that it's as short as I can make it because I can be a little long-winded sometimes. Imagine that. And then the other thing that in my video, I'll usually either make fun of myself or have a quick joke or something funny in it that actually makes people want to watch it. And I'll try to include that about halfway through. Now, I learned this technique actually with my students, and I try to do it with my students too, because here's the thing. People don't like folks who take themselves too seriously. So I'm okay with that. Now, that's not going to be all of you, and I'm not going to say that a headmaster, a principal, or a superintendent has to do that. But if you are able to make a joke, and it's you, then do. Just be careful, with humor. My humor is usually something, video related or whatever. Make your video quick but relevant and include some things people can't hear anywhere else. Here's the power of video. Most of our communication is actually face, voice, and body language. So you lose something when you have a newsletter, and we know how many parents actually don't even read our emails sometimes. So video announcements are fantastic in today's world, if you can pull those off. Again, I like to use a newsletter. And then the other thing is ask what they prefer. So the videos and the newsletters were working great. And then I noticed in S'more, I have tracking capabilities. So the last newsletter that I sent out, I actually did not include the video because I had some changes and wasn't able to include it. But then I looked at my stats and the reading was just way down. People just didn't read it. So I went to some teachers and I said, hey, I noticed a lot of people didn't read the newsletter. And they said, oh, we're so busy right now. We'd really like you to come to our next staff meeting and share blank. And so that was what I did because that's what they asked for. But, I think that whole relationship and, moving and adapting to what is working for your team at that moment helps you feel more responsive and you're the servant leader. And it just kind of makes things more real and you don't get stale and old. So this is how I communicate effectively. I would encourage you to share in the questions or the chat. How do you communicate and what techniques do you use? So here's professional development opportunities. There's quite a few. Now, I love the 10-minute PD approach. Imagine that. I have a podcast named The 10-Minute Teacher. And that's because I learned an interesting statistic not too long ago is I had another podcast called Every Classroom Matters, which is still up there and people still listen to that. But the show ran, 12 minutes to sometimes, 21 or 22. And I learned this statistic that most people stop listening to podcasts between 8 to 12 minutes. So what's the point of having anything much longer? Because that's the attention span that people have. And so now when I'm doing professional development, I really try to keep it to a 10-minute PD. So if I'm in a staff meeting, I try to keep it to 10 minutes. Now, um, some of the people I work with will tell me and say, oh, she doesn't. And there are times I really do go over and I don't mean to because I get so excited and swept away. But sharing ideas, celebrating wins, letting teachers teach each other, and then recording quick videos. So sometimes if a teacher does something amazing, but they don't really know how to, share it or want to share it, I'll run in their room and I'll say, hey, let me video you talking about that. And then I can share that video, or let me video your kids doing this and we'll share that as well. Also, though, create a help site. So this whole just-in-time learning, people want to learn when it's time for them to learn. And so I have a help site that I created on Google site that's private just for our school. And anytime I create these training videos and all of these newsletters and all these videos that I have, I put them all on the help site. So if somebody asks me a question that maybe I dealt with a couple months ago, I can actually just grab the link for that page and send them the link for that page, and then they've got their own little personal answer. But when I add to the site, I'll usually announce it in the newsletter, hey, I added this to the site. Or if it's a problem, like when somebody said, I'm having trouble with this, then I said, okay, I'll record a video and I'll send it out. Now, when you do have your professional learning days, and let's just like our students, remember to change the pace every 20 minutes and make it relevant. Listen to their concerns and involve them in the experience. I had another person on my show, I'm trying to remember the name of who said this, but she had a professional development activity from their principal, and their principal had them build gingerbread houses, and this was done at Christmas. And so they built these gingerbread houses, and after the teachers got so into it, and they had 10 minutes to build a gingerbread house. So after they got done, the principal handed out the rubric for how they were going to be graded. And the teachers were furious. They were furious. Well, the point was actually not gingerbread. The point was about giving rubrics up front, because otherwise kids go off in the wrong direction and they don't know where you want to go, and you can't assume that they know. And it was such a powerful learning experience for those teachers, just the way that that principal handled it. And they had fun, but such an important point was made. There's so many great ways to do this, but do involve teachers. And remember, it's about respect. When you have a professional development opportunity, you have hundreds, if not thousands of years of teaching experience in that room. Who are we to think that we can't use that experience? So please do that. And it's all part of creating the warmer temperature for innovation. So I love PD events. And again, this is an idea that I got from an educator in Texas. I'm trying to remember who it was. If you tweet me on Twitter at CoolCatTeacher, I can pull these out. But basically, she had a professional development event for 2 to 3 weeks. And this is so much fun. We did it between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we called it the Christmas 3 PD experience. And the goal was to try 3 new things between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it was a 2 to 3 week period. We had fun little challenges and we gave choices. So first week was game-based learning week. We gave them a lot of choices and they could choose. Challenge them, though, to try something they hadn't done before. So we had these cute little Christmas trees outside their door, and we put a little ornament on it. And on the ornament, I actually wrote the name of the app or tool that they tried and put it on the little Christmas tree. And they were just so proud of the trees. The funny thing is nobody wanted to take their trees down. So I told them, take them down and put them in different places. And they've all got them in their rooms because they said, we worked so hard for our tree. We were so proud of it. So having those visible rewards of the little balls on the trees and the names of what they tried, and that celebrates the wins. But we did make it optional. And there were a few teachers who were just at a point that they did not think they could do it. And I totally respected that. Now, the interesting thing that happened is more and more people started joining in when others joined in. So it was kind of a positive, I'm not going to say positive peer pressure because it wasn't really pressure, but it was kind of a fun, positive celebration. Now, I want to point something out. A great book for those of you who want to be leaders that's really shaped my own leadership is a book called The Influencer by Carrie Patterson et al. So a big group of people. And he talks about using 4 tactics to help people love what they hate. Now, I'm hoping that none of you hate technology, but we always know that somebody doesn't like it or somebody's scared of it, and that's okay. So first is we allow for choice. We give people choices. We want everybody to do e-portfolios. Here's some choices. Take a look at it and let's see what works. Or if you want to choose the same e-portfolio tool for everybody, let the teachers make a team and let them test all of them and then choose it together that way. So create direct experiences. So experiences with whatever it is you're trying to do and create opportunities for direct experiences where people can experiment. Do tell the stories. Tell the stories of what happens. The awesomest thing happens. So Holly, one of our 5th grade teachers, implements Google Classroom about 3 weeks ago. And it was awesome because the kids, the boys in the class in particular, went and thanked one of our principals that day and said, thank you so much for letting 5th grade have Google Classroom. We had so much fun. It was such a good time. And they were just bragging and bragging. Well, when she turned around and told me that this happened, it just like totally made my day because they told me a meaningful story. And then I was able to turn around and I'm able to tell you, when the kids get excited and when things happen, tell those stories because it kind of helps increase that environment. It helps people not feel alone and it helps you warm up to innovation. And then figure out how can we make it a game, kind of like the Christmas 3 that we had. Now, we want to celebrate success. Do ask teachers what they would like. So when we were doing the Christmas 3, we said, hey guys, what do you like? And one was like coffee, another was like pedicures, and others were like, I want to be relieved from carpool duty. So the grand prize was actually no carpool duty for a week, and one of our administrators did it for the teacher. So simple is often better, but try to find something teachers are genuinely excited about, or you could even give a team a budget and let them buy it. Now, do celebrate wins in the staff meeting. Just be, so my principal headmaster does something really awesome. Before we have staff meetings, he emails all of us and said, hey, do you want to nominate the wins we need to celebrate? And then he gets all these emails about all these great things happening, and then he picks some of them, and you never know. Like every staff meeting, I hear things that I never knew happened on campus, and it gets me excited. It makes me proud. It makes me feel like part of something really special, like it is. I encourage teachers to tell on each other in a good way. So that's what my headmaster's doing there. Do share on social media. So we're real big at my school on sharing and talking about what we're doing. But also remember sincere personal appreciation, messaging them privately or sending them an email or telling them in person. Last week it was on Friday. I came in, I was so tired. We had a big event at the school Thursday night. It was kind of an emotional event. And I came in on Friday morning and on my door, I had this little gift. And I go in there and I had to look up a word. It said geek on fleek. Okay. So I didn't know what fleek was, but it's a good thing. It's kind of like saying the bomb, but it's different. It's like beautiful or whatever. And that was so awesome. And it was a fellow teacher who had just saw it at Target, thought about me and wanted to say thank you for something. And it like totally made my day. And then another teacher brought in that morning, right almost at the same time, some Cuban coffee for me. And I was just like, oh, well, see, now I'm going to write a little personal thank you note because that's the right thing to do. And so this whole private personal appreciation, we appreciate people publicly, but we also have that private appreciation that we give people. And then, time to enjoy each other. Now, I did hear about some schools in I think this school was up in New Jersey. I heard about on Twitter a teacher wellness day, and this particular school actually had a fun event planned for the teachers. So they went off together and got to team build and kind of get together. Because if you think about it, businesses have team building all the time, but why don't schools do it? Well, I think why most schools don't do it is because we're under such a microscope and nobody wants, I don't know why. I guess people just think teachers don't need joy. I don't know what it is, but having those team building experiences is just so important. There's lots of ideas. I'm not sure if I'm going to have time to go into all of them, but I love the paper plate awards. I do these in my classroom, but they're also great for staff meetings or whatever, where you just take a cheap old paper plate and you'll make them with markers and you'll nominate people. This is great to do at the end of a PD event to recognize different things, and you laugh. Kids will hold these paper plate awards like forever. We've been given turtle awards in talking about people who are turtling, and that's awesome. Capture a video moment and share it. Have a party or something unexpected, or deliver a treat. We got these little cards at the beginning of school, and they said, this is good for a Starbucks on any day you choose. And did you just present it and they'll go get it? Now, my PTA a couple of years ago sent a massage therapist to the school, and you could sign up for 10-minute sessions to get your shoulders rubbed. And I'm going to tell you, not everybody signed up, but those who did, it was such a happy day. So that was really, really cool. But most schools, a lot of schools now keep a list of teacher likes in a binder in the office so people can give them things they like. And, what's wrong with going in there and looking at what a colleague likes and using it? It doesn't have to just be for parents. But remember to keep it simple. Simpler is often better. But I was talking to another teacher about what they like, and our teachers get jeans passes where they can wear jeans on the day of their choice, and they just use their jeans pass with administration. Or somebody saying, hey, I'll do your duty for you today, or you can leave 15 minutes early. Sometimes these things are little, but they're actually a big deal. Okay, so as we finish, we want to make sure we are getting ready for our questions. So please put those in there in the question box so that we can talk about it. But you need to know your teachers. I hope I've emphasized the importance of respecting and loving your teachers and knowing their life situations. If someone has just been diagnosed with cancer, it is not the time to put a guilt trip on them. Or if they're getting ready to have a baby in 3 weeks. I mean, I just think that when my students get sick, it's an opportunity to work with them and give grace and go the extra mile. But when they're not sick, they're going to go the extra mile for me. So problems are the canvas upon which we paint our learning and our relationships. And you don't want to miss the opportunity. And I hate to call problems opportunities, because problems are problems, and I hate problems, and I hate sickness, and I hate all the hard stuff that happens to people. But that's the time where it's kind of like they have a bullseye on them in the shape of a heart. And it's like, I need to love that person because I've had it hard too. So know your teachers. Know that also there are opinion leaders in your school. They have the credibility, they have influence, they have expertise. But remember that sometimes a person might be an opinion leader for sports, but they may not be an opinion leader for, curriculum. So when you're in a school, and I'm in a new school this year, it's my first year, learning, who the opinion leaders are in different areas is so important. It's so valuable for me because usually I've found that opinion leaders are opinion leaders for a reason. Um, Usually they have great wisdom to give you, and you need to go to them and seek their wisdom. So, I try to find those opinion leaders. But when a teacher can't make forward progress in Turtle when they're hanging on for dear life, I think it's okay to let teachers opt out. Just remember, they shouldn't be opting out every single time for their whole career, because then they're not innovating, they're stagnating. And we know stagnant water just gets nasty. But also know that people do not have to tell you everything. Sometimes they may opt out, and it is not time for you to go, well, they say they're busy. I'm busier than they are, because they're not telling you everything. You cannot see into people's lives. You don't know everything. So, how are you turtling? Ask teachers how they're turtling. Talk to them about progress. Celebrate those wins. And sometimes, this is what I've found, so many teachers do not realize what they're doing is amazing. There's so many times I'll go in and they'll say, hey, I did this, but it's no big deal. And I'm like, no, that is a big deal. That is so awesome. I'm so proud of you. And kids need that too, is celebrate and notice what people are doing. So I hope we've covered all of our learning outcomes. Emily, now let's hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Vicki. Yes, I think you covered a lot and shared some really wonderful tips with all of us, and we appreciate that. We do have some questions coming in, and we're happy to take more. So folks, as Vicki said, use that questions panel to send them in. Before we get started with those, I did just want to thank our sponsor, NetRef, for bringing Vicki to present this great information to us. And NetRef can help with some of the things that Vicki has talked about here today in terms of just the huge number of websites and
Emily, I'm not sure if you dropped off. Are you still there?
oh, am I back?
You are back now. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, I don't know what
You
happened.
said that NetRef can help you with the immense number of websites because they have that really cool feature where you can see what everybody's using on your campus, which is just so awesome.
Yes, thank you, Vicki, for filling in there. So we do want to encourage you to explore more about NetRef and how it can help you manage website and internet access in your classrooms, as well as help the administrators in our audience also determine the EdTech ROI of their investments based on usage and helping determine professional development needs and things like that. So please do check out NetRef at net-ref.com. And we hope that if you're interested, you'll reach out and ask for a demo and also for a free trial. Now is a great time to try NetRef out ahead of next school year, where you could have it implemented and ready to use when you get back in the fall. All right, let's go ahead and take a couple of the questions that have come in. So this one came in early on. And the person asked, Vicki, do you have formal sessions where teachers share what they've learned, or is it more of kind of the ad hoc sharing that you described?
Both. So the PD opportunities should be a variety. They're sharing in their Google Classroom what they're doing. I'm also making those rounds. I'm talking to people about what they're doing. I'm trying to capture it. I'm putting it in the newsletter. I'm talking about it in videos. I'm telling my headmaster so he can talk about it in staff meetings. There's a variety. But now when we see a teacher really doing something amazing, we will on professional development days say, okay, Monica has an hour to teach, kindergartners what she's doing with blank. Or so-and-so is going to be teaching about how to use the interactive projectors. And we kind of find experts and we make time for those experts to be sharing with others. If somebody's great at something, that should be the person who kind of shares it. So part of my job is kind of facilitating who should be sharing what. So that is a fantastic question, but it is a variety because what you want is you want it to become part of the environment of your school that you're sharing and learning and leveling up a little bit every day. And it's kind of like you're all turtling together.
Yeah, I think what you said about making it just a natural, organic part of the environment that everybody is sharing and feeding off what they're learning from each other. Let's see. So as far as FaceTime goes and making the rounds, I always worry about just popping into classrooms because maybe I'm interrupting. Teachers might think I'm checking up on them. I get lots of looks like, oh, I didn't know you were coming in. How do I connect without teachers feeling and thinking these things?
Well, if you do it once a month, they're going to think that there's something up. That's why it's part of my weekly routine. Now, it's a little different because I'm an instructional technology director, and I have a feeling the person who asked that question is principal. But my curriculum director at my previous school, this was part of her habit. I really learned this from her. She stuck her face in my classroom at least once a week. I knew that she would just stick in to check. And now she was sensitive to what was going on. Like, for example, when I make my rounds, there is a certain time when I know teachers' doors are open, and that's a good time. So that is the time I'm making my rounds. I've kind of, they've made so that I'm open first block. And so that's the time I'm walking the school and when the doors are open. Now, my high school teachers, it's a little bit different, and I have to go around at different times depending upon the teacher. So you do have to get to know the routines of the people you're wanting to check on because this is about them and being a servant leader to others. But it has to be part of your habits. And when it becomes part of your habits, and you can give them an upfront, say, hey guys, I've set a goal. I want to be in, pop in more often. Then there's a little less freaking out. But I will agree that if the only time an administrator puts their head in my room is once a year, it does kind of, even though I've been teaching for 17 years and I feel like I'm good at what I do, I'll blush and stammer and get, clammy hands, and if they just don't ever come in. So just make it part of your habit. And I know it's really, really hard, but there's a great book written many years ago called The 1 Minute Manager, and it talks about this management by walking around, and it's part of leadership, and it does work.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. And again, making it just part of the routine. So it's not this big, scary evaluation moment that's happening. Mm-hmm. It truly is a visit, as we like to say in the South.
Yep.
Well, unfortunately, we have reached the end of our time. That went really quickly. And Vicki, we thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing all of your experience and ideas. You have such great energy, and I know everyone is really going to benefit from what they learned here today. And thanks to everyone who took time out of their very busy lives to join us for today's webinar. As a reminder, we will be sending an email tomorrow with a link to the presentation deck and recording. So keep an eye out for that, and you can also find that material on the NetRef website. We also hope you'll mark your calendar for our final webinar of the school year, and that's coming up on April 24th. Naomi Harm with Innovative Educator Consulting is going to join us to talk about collaborative EdTech leadership and strategies for building buy-in for new EdTech and creating a culture of EdTech innovation. So I think what Naomi is going to share is going to build really nicely on what Vicki has shared with us today. So please do join us for that, and you can register for that on the NetRef website. Thanks again, Vicki, and thanks to everyone in our audience.
Thank you.